Insider newsletter came out with the top 15 tax havens around the world. And this list kind of afforded me because St. Kitts was actually left off on this list, which is kind of nice because these are the countries that the OECD and the EU seem to like to bully around because they feel like they're not paying their fair share on people. They're not forcing them to pay high taxes when they really should be, the OECD countries should be competing with these lower taxes. Instead, they try to put pressure on them. They blacklist them and do all kinds of things that just, they just basically bully them. They don't seem to touch the UAE too much, which kind of floors me, but the UAE just doesn't put up with their crap, I guess. But these tax havens, St. Kitts was left off, and St. Kitts does have a high corporate income tax, and now their offshore Nevis corporations are taxed the same way as the local companies at 33%. This is for the corporations and limited companies. And this is probably one reason the OECD doesn't, put them on these type of lists, which is nice because they're hidden from the radar. Because remember, St. Kitts gives you a choice. You don't have to have a corporate structure set up. You can set up what's called an unincorporated business tax, or unincorporated business, which enacts a business tax of normally it's 4%, but during the coronavirus it's 2%, which is almost totally tax-free. There is no income tax. There is a business tax, like I mentioned on that figure. But I'm going to go through these. And some of the countries they had on here, I couldn't believe they had on here because they have high internal taxes, which kind of floored me. They actually left off, tax havens that are like St. Kitts, and there are a few other ones they left off on here too, especially the ones in the Gulf region. But let's take a look at these, and I'll talk to you a little bit about this. But these are the top tax havens in the world, the top 15 that they listed. And let's start with number one. But before we do this, I want to go over a couple of things with you. This is what they said about tax havens. They said that tax havens are places where super wealthy individuals keep money offshore, in offshore accounts, for reasons that include, among others, tax avoidance. These individuals often hold money within shell companies and anonymous entities in places like the Cayman Islands and other small and low tax jurisdictions in remote locations. Now, CorpNet, an Amsterdam-based corporate research group, ranked the world's top tax havens based on how much more money comes into the country than how much should come in based on the size of the economy. Now, some of these small countries, boy, I'm going to tell you, they're bringing in mega bucks only because they've come out with a smart concept, and that is get their taxes as close to zero as they can get. Now, some of these had high internal taxes, like I said, inside, and I really was surprised that they listed them. But now, most of the top tax havens are island nations like the British Virgin Islands, Samoa, and Malta. Now, Malta has an internal tax structure. They do have a pretty good territorial tax system that can be controlled, but they still, have higher taxes than other pure tax havens that were left off this list. But tax havens are places, they stated, where business people and other super wealthy individuals keep money in offshore accounts for tax avoidance and other purposes. Also, if you get a chance, if you want to legally get your income taxes to zero, or how to get a second passport as quick as 45 days, do three things. Hit the subscribe button on the right of your screen right here, and you'll get new videos automatically as they come out. And number two is I would like to hear from you. If you got a question or comment, put it below. And number three is go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com. Hit that top bar that says apply with us, fill out the questions, and then hit that bottom bar that says send it to us. We'll get back with you. We deal with over 100 countries now in citizenship by investment and residency by investment all over the world. All right, in the article, they stated that OFCs, which are called offshore financial centers, these are tax shelters that are often small in low tax jurisdictions in remote locations like the Caribbean Islands. Now, in these places, wealthy individuals often hold money within shell companies and anonymous entities. Now, an organization called CorpNet, which is an Amsterdam-based research group, investigates global networks of corporate control, published a 2017 report in Scientific Reports ranking 24 offshore financial centers by their SINK number, that's spelled S-I-N-K, which indicates roughly how much more money comes into the country than how much should come in based on the size of the economy. And some of these countries, boy, are bringing in megabucks only because of their tax laws, which ought to be a reason that a lot of countries should be copying this. Let me give you an example. In the Cayman Islands, for example, 331 times more value sinks into the country than is proportionate to the size of the economy. This just shows you what happens when you eliminate the income tax, the capital gains tax. There's no corporate tax in Cayman Islands. Now, they do hit you on other import duties and other types of high fees. It's a very expensive place to live there, but it has lured a lot of wealthy people and a lot of money in there. Now, the European Union released a tax haven blacklist, first published in 2015, and it continuously updated that calls out specific countries in order to improve global tax governance and fight tax fraud, evasion, and avoidance. The EU blacklist pressures nations to make changes and reforms to their tax codes, and blacklisted countries can face sanctions from the EU according to the Oxfam International. All right, here are the world's 15 top tax havens according to CorpNet. All right, number 15 is a country called Seychelles. Now, its sink number was 60. Once a colony of the United Kingdom, Seychelles is a group of islands in the Indian Ocean. It's got about 2.5 times the area of Washington, D.C. The island nation made headlines in 2018 for being or setting of mysterious alleged meeting between Trump-linked private security entrepreneur and a Russian CEO and a representative of the United Arab Emirates, which was investigated by Robert Mueller as part of the Trump-Russia investigation. Now, Seychelles was one of 30 countries blacklisted as a tax haven by the EU in 2015, but it was later moved to the gray list after making some tax reform commitments. All right, now number 14 is a country called Cyprus. Now, here's one right here that, you know, the taxes are pretty good, but they do have an internal income tax there, but they still listed them number 14. Now, Cyprus, sink number was 62. Cyprus, of course, is a Mediterranean island of about 1.2 million people. South of Turkey is investigating corruption charges related to its golden passport program, which gives citizenship to foreigners who invest at least 2.2 million in real estate or other local business in the country. Now, 13 is a country called Nauru, which is a real remote country close to Australia. The sink number in this is 67. Nauru is a Pacific island northeast of Australia. It's the world's smallest independent republic with an area of about 8 square miles and a population of under 10,000 people. Now, in 2001, the tiny island nation was internationally blacklisted amid concerns that it had become a center for money laundering, and it was among the countries blacklisted as a tax haven by the EU in 2015. The OECD upgraded Nauru's tax transparency standards in 2017. All right, the next country is a country called Luxembourg. Now, Luxembourg, this is a country I thought was unusual that they put this country in there because Luxembourg has pretty high internal taxes. But its sink number was 71. Luxembourg is one of the wealthiest countries in the world, largely thanks to its financial sector, which makes up more than 35% of its GDP. Now, the government has put policies in place since 2002 to attract foreign direct investment, but Luxembourg has lost some of its favorable tax advantages in recent years after pressure from the EU and the OECD, according to the CIA World Factbook. Now, number 11 is a country called Mauritius. Its sink number is 75. Now, Mauritius is an island nation off the southeast coast of Africa with a population around 1.4 million people, and it's home to more than 32,000 offshore entities. It has encouraged foreign investment since the late 1980s and early 1990s when it enacted the Mauritius Offshore Business Activity Act, which allowed the incorporation of foreign entities with little financial disclosures and extremely low taxation according to courts. Now, Mauritius was one of the 30 countries blacklisted as a tax haven by the EU in 2015, but the EU removed it from the list in October 2019. Now, the next one is one that really surprised me too, because and that is Malta, number 10, because Malta does have an internal income tax. And it does have a pretty good territorial tax system that can be controlled. But still, like I said, it's not a pure tax haven, but they did list it with a sink number of 100. And Malta is actually in the Mediterranean Sea, south of Italy, with a population around 450,000 people. Now, according to the BBC, companies in Malta pay the lowest tax on profits of any country in the EU. Local businesses pay a 35% tax on profits, but foreign corporations pay as little as 5%. Now, then number 10 is Marshall Islands. The sync number is 100. The Marshall Islands is a chain of islands in the Central Pacific Ocean between Hawaii and the Philippines. And it was under U.S. administration for almost 40 years before gaining independence in 1986. Now, the island nation, around 76,000 people, was one of the few countries blacklisted as a tax haven by the EU in 2015. But the EU decided in 2019 to remove it from the blacklist because the country is outlawing letterbox companies that are used for tax avoidance and hiding the identities of wealthy people. All right, now Curacao is another one that's in the Caribbean. It's actually rated number 8, and its sync number is 115. This is where the big quantum fund actually had its base for many, many years. And Curacao is a Dutch Caribbean island. It's also known as an offshore financial center. In 2017, it was put on the EU's gray list of countries that need to improve their tax policy to comply with EU transparency regulations, but have committed in doing so. Number 7 is a country called Liechtenstein. Now, here's another one that actually has, internal taxes. It's not a pure tax haven, but it was on this list. And one reason I think they put it on the list, it is such a small country, but it just hoards in money, man. The sync number was 225. Liechtenstein, a European country smaller than Washington, D.C., has a thriving financial services sector and one of the highest per capita levels of income in the world. Now, according to the EU, it has also served as a tax haven, prompting the Union to blacklist the country in 2015. Liechtenstein agreed to crack down on tax evasion, but it still has one of the lowest corporate tax rates in Europe. The next one is a very secretive country called Samoa, which a lot of people don't realize how secretive their tax laws are and their personal business dealings there are. But it was rated number 6, and its sync number was 277. In 2015, the South Pacific island state of 200,000 residents was ranked the world's most financially secretive nation. Listen to this, the most financially secretive nation in a list of tax havens compiled by the Tax Justice Network. And that tells you how strong the privacy is in this country, and a lot of people have never heard, or if they've heard of it, they don't know how secretive their laws are on privacy matters. Now, in 2015, the South Pacific island state of 200,000 residents was ranked the world's most financially secretive nation in a list of tax havens compiled by the Tax Justice Network. Samoa is also on the EU's blacklist of global tax havens. Now, number 5 is the Cayman Islands. These are the countries that are really bringing in the cash because of their tax policies. I mean, this should teach other countries, if you want to bring in hordes of money, be tax competitive, and try to get the taxes as close to zero as you can. Sync number here in the Cayman Islands is 331. The Cayman Islands is one of the world's most notorious tax shelters because it has no corporate tax, no personal income tax, and no capital gains tax. It was one of 30 countries blacklisted as a tax haven in the EU in 2015. Now, in 2019, in October, the Cayman Islands promised to reveal the identities of every person who owns a company there by 2023, courts reported. This is one reason you might want to avoid the Cayman Islands, okay? Privacy is getting really bad there. I got a feeling maybe their taxes is probably going to erode down the road. It's a very expensive place to live. There's a lot better options than that. I actually like St. Kitts better because you can get your taxes to zero in St. Kitts, but you don't get bullied by the OECD. It stays kind of out of the wind. The OECD just doesn't notice it. But this is something that you really need to think about when you're choosing countries. Bermuda's number 4. Bermuda just hoards tons of money with all their offshore insurance companies. Sync number is 374. The economy of the British Island Territory, which is home to about 71,000 people, relies primarily on insurance and other financial services. Oxfam named Bermuda's the world's worst corporate tax haven in 2016, and it was one of 30 countries blacklisted as a tax haven by the EU in 2015. You notice these countries that are bringing in the most megabucks from luring in wealthy people and avoiding taxes, they're the ones they hate the most. Jersey's number 3. Jersey had a sink number of 397. This country brings in megabucks from people that are trying to avoid taxes. Jersey is one of the Channel Islands between England and France, and it has had a reputation as a tax haven since the wealthy Brits started moving there and then transferring their money there in the 1920s to take advantage of its lack of wealth and inheritance taxes. All right, now the Tax Justice Network this year ranked Jersey as one of the most aggressive tax havens in the world. Maybe a reason to go there. But these are countries that they're actually leaning on. So these countries are probably going to have to start giving in somewhat. How much they give in, I don't know. And this is what happens when you start making a lot of money. It starts showing. Number 2 is Taiwan. And here's a country that's got a pretty high internal taxes. So I'm really surprised they listed this one. But it is a small country, and its sink number is really high, 2,278. In 2017, Taiwan was named a potential tax haven by the EU Economic and Financial Affairs Council. Taiwan is a disputed nation. While China claims it's as one of its territories, Taiwan considers itself an independent democracy that champions human rights issues. The EU removed Taiwan from its blacklist in 2019 after it made commitments to reform its tax system. Now, number 1 is in the Caribbean, and it's the British Virgin Islands with a sink number of 5,235. I'm going to tell you something. This country is bringing in mega bucks, and they've bent very little. They've bent some, but let's see what happens in the future, okay? The world's top tax haven, which is the British Virgin Island, holds more than 5,000 times the value of what its economy should hold. This tells you what can happen when a small country brings in smart tax policies, and this is what happens. The self-governing overseas territory of the United Kingdom, home to about 35,802 people, was one of 30 countries blacklisted as a tax haven by the EU in 2015. In 2017, British Virgin Island officials released a report claiming the British territory was not a tax haven, but a strong contributor to the global economy and facilitator of international trade and investment. Now, the EU gave the British Virgin Islands until the end of 2019 to comply with its tax reforms and avoid landing on its tax haven blacklist in 2019. These countries should stand up to these countries. It just blows me how they throw in the towel so many times. One of the most famous names associated with the British Virgin Islands is Richard Branson, the billionaire entrepreneur who owns Necker Island, a 74-acre private island with a luxury resort that he often opens up to his friends like Barack and Michelle Obama. Folks, if you want to learn more on this and other things, go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com. Hit that top bar that says apply with us, fill out the questions, hit that bottom bar that says send it to us. We'll get back with you. We deal with a lot of citizenship by investment, residency by investment countries all over the world. Folks, if you want to get your taxes to zero or to get a second passport as quick as 45 days, we can show you how to do it. The longer you go on this, the more taxes you're going to pay over a period of time. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the right of your screen right here. You get new videos as they come out automatically. And don't forget to hit that notification bell next to that subscription button. And I would like to hear from you. If you got a question or comment, just put it below. And I'll look forward to talking to you on the next video. Take care.